Hello viewers, and a warm welcome to the show today. I am your host, Chef Andy, and as you can see, I am joined by Kevin. Kevin is a very well-known artist here in Nairobi, very good at his work, and is actually also very passionate about his food. Now, I've actually managed to get or convince him to join me on the show today because we are going to be working with some fish, and I'm of course going to be trying to convince him to try out new different techniques of cooking as opposed to what he's been doing in the recent past. But before I proceed, Kevin, do introduce yourself to the guests.
So my name is Kevin, and my artist name is Bankslave, a street artist, graffiti artist from Nairobi, Kenya in East Africa. And I've been traveling the world with my art, and of course I like to eat. And I try different cuisines all over the world wherever I travel, but fish is one of my best.
Perfect. Yeah. Now, I'm of course going to be taking up a very difficult challenge, of course, by trying to impress you and see if I can wow you based on the experience of food that you've had.
Of course, you're the best, man.
Thank you, man. But before I proceed, of course, I will introduce the ingredients just to give us an idea of what to expect for the show. Now, from the very front, you will require 1 tablespoon of coriander powder and 1 teaspoon of cumin powder. You'll also require some garlic and some dried up oregano, about 2 medium-sized onions and 1 large-sized tomato. You'll also require about 2 medium-sized lemons, some fresh coriander and some fresh spring onion. You're also going to require 1 whole tilapia, some salt and pepper to season with, some oil to cook your fish in, and of course 1 green, 1 red and 1 yellow bell pepper, which we're of course going to be turning into a vegetable medley. But before we proceed, we are going to give you this chance to grab your pens and papers if you're taking notes, and we'll see you after a little while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you have just tuned in, you have missed out on a very simple introduction of our ingredients and of course of our guest, but you will of course be able to catch up as we proceed. But before I continue, very important to mention, we are going to be working on a very simple dish today, which is basically just a fish that we're going to fry up in a pan. And I'm also going to be showing my guest today how to make, or rather to incorporate some very simple tips to actually bring that beautiful fish to the table. But before we continue, for some of you who have just tuned in, the guest with me on the show today, his name is Kevin, or Bankslave by the artist name he uses on the streets. And he's actually a very good friend, very good talent. And if you haven't seen his work already, I'm sure you can tell them where to find some of your work, or maybe where they can catch up on what you've been doing. Yeah.
So my work is on Bankslave on Instagram, Bankslave on Facebook, and then you have my site, bankslaveart.com. And then also you can throw me an email if you want a mural at mrbankslave@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, Kevin, are you feeling ready to cook?
Yeah, man, let's go.
All right, so you're going to start off very simply by chopping up some of our onions and some of the rest of the ingredients. And while Kevin does so, I'm also going to be cleaning up some fish that we're going to be frying up very briefly. So Kevin, you can go ahead and begin.
Okay.
Now, of course, very important to mention, always, of course, very keen and big thing that some of you may already not know about. Very simple techniques of picking out fish. So Kevin, I don't know if you've been, have you been out buying fish in the recent past?
Yeah, I have.
Is there any particular points that you check for when you buy your fish, or you just grab whatever they say is fresh?
I just like ask them, Mama, do you think this is nice? This is nice. It looks nice. Okay. So, and then there are just spots where I go and I usually just get the ones that are really already cut and fried. So I just go back home and try to cut on the onions and the tomatoes and just try to make my fry. It always turns out okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to share some small tips that you can be able to depict when you go out to the fish.
All right.
And of course, for those of you at home watching, if you do, of course, or if you are looking for those particular tips to know that you can actually be able to pick up some good, nice, fresh fish when in the market, then I'm also going to share some tips with you as well.
Okay.
Now, one thing that is very, very important to mention, especially when you go out buying fish, always begin by just pressing the fish.
Okay.
If at any moment you press the fish and it actually does not almost bounce back on the feel of your hand, it should actually almost be like
resisting.
It should actually resist the pressure.
The pressure.
So that is one particular one that you should check for. If you actually press and it leaves a dent, just say thank you and proceed to the next vendor.
That means it's bad.
That means that fish is old.
Okay.
So fresh fish will always, of course, be it'll actually have a very, very beautiful consistency to it, and it's going to be nice and firm.
That shows the muscles are still...
It shows that the muscles are still okay. It means the fish, of course, has also not been sitting out of the water too long.
All right.
Because once it sits out too much, of course, it will ooze out all the liquid, which, of course, means when you touch it, it's going to be mushy.
Oh, okay.
All right. Now, the next pointer to share with you guys as well, also check on the eyes. Very, very important. When you feel on the eye, it should actually still almost be bulging out. It should not be inverted
concave
or concave.
Yeah.
So very, very important point to check for. You can always just feel for the eyes. If, for instance, you can see this one has got a nice, beautiful concave. It doesn't have the concave to it. You can actually be able to see it's also nice and bright in color. It's not also gone gray.
All right.
So one particular point that most people forget, they check on the texture of the fish, but they forget to check the eye as well.
All right.
And of course, the last and final tip I can share with you is the gills. Now what happens is when you lift the fish from the side, what color do you see in there?
I see like whitish, orangish.
Almost pinkish, almost reddish, yeah?
Yes.
So it should actually almost resemble blood consistency.
All right, okay.
If you notice it's too white and pale like the plate, underneath, walk away.
Okay.
So it should actually have the gills nice and fresh, or rather they should actually have some nice beautiful coloring, and even on pressing they should actually almost react to the touch.
All right.
You should not actually also just go flat as soon as you touch it.
All right.
So if you actually use those 3 tips, I am guaranteed there's nobody who will con you at the market.
Thanks
very,
for the
very
tips,
simple
man.
tips.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, now at least you know how to walk into that market and look like you're a fisherman.
Right.
Yeah?
Good.
Right. Now next up, we are of course going to clean out the fish. So I'm going to begin by taking out the fins from the end, from the sides. And this is just a matter of slicing this off. Remember this, the bits that I'm slicing off are not edible. So remember this you can always remove before you proceed to slice your piece of fish.
Yeah.
And then of course always remember that mid fin.
Yeah.
And of course the fins at the bottom. So this you should always proceed to remove, because what happens is sometimes when you're eating fish, or if once you've fried them, remember it actually is a little soft to the touch at the moment, but once this fries up it becomes very, very tough. And what happens is those can actually prick into your fingers when you're trying to handle the fish.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it's always a good idea to take this off before you proceed.
Before you proceed.
And as well,
that's when you're making a fillet, or
actually, even when you're making whole fish, be sure to remove them, because of another reason for that is as well, these are not edible. You can't really eat them.
Yeah.
So taking them out early saves you the time of battling with them when they're on the plate.
When they're on the plate,
Exactly. Right. So take out the fins at the bottom as well.
I can remember they were called the dorsal fin.
Dorsal fins, yes. That's the name for it.
Yeah, because we had the pectoral fins, the dorsal fins.
So the dorsal fin would actually be the one right at the top.
Right.
And you're actually very, very correct.
Yeah.
And the next one you mentioned?
Pectoral.
Pectoral, that would be the one right at the bottom.
Right.
So I can see Kevin is actually very familiar with fish.
Yeah, man.
You're definitely a fish
That was
fan.
like 15 marks, man, on my biology.
Hey, is it?
Yeah, 15
back in the
marks.
day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, I also remember
our 844 system.
Our 844 system was quite tough. There are things that we had to learn.
Yeah.
Even if we thought that we wouldn't even come to use them in the future.
Yeah, man.
We actually rely on them very much professionally today.
Right.
Right, so you can of course be able to get some kitchen scissors that can actually slice this off very easily.
Nice.
If you of course don't have a sharp knife at home, you can also have your fishmonger remove them for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can actually be able to carry your fish home once this is done. And of course, and last but not least, always remember to have your fish scaled. I don't know, Kevin, if you've had instances where you try to work with fish and the scales are still coming off.
Usually, not hard to work with the fish that have been cooked. So usually I've just gotten fish that's
already
cooked.
been worked on and
Yeah,
is just ready to go.
On. Yes.
So now I hope you're now going to try and work with fish that hasn't been touched.
Now I'll try because now I'm learning. I never knew how to like skim it or just like remove the contents. I don't know that stuff. But
now I believe now you've got the beautiful tips you need to do so, yeah?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Thanks for that, man.
Perfect. Now, as Kevin continues to slice up our onions, I'm also going to proceed to get those fins off completely. Be sure to also be very vigilant when doing so. Of course, always work with a sharp knife and always try as much as you can to keep your hands covered. If you can actually be able to find some gloves to work with, especially when cleaning raw meat, it's always a good idea, for the fact that it will also be very, very easy for you to work without continuing to spread any bacteria on your working surface.
All right.
Right, so just going to finish taking that dorsal fin off completely.
Yeah. I didn't know this onions can be that strong.
Now, one tip I can share with you as well.
Yeah.
What you can do is you can grab a bit of some salt and sprinkle right over.
Before cutting?
No, even as you chop.
Oh,
you can
okay.
actually sprinkle some salt right over the top.
Yeah.
To also make it very easy for you to chop.
Okay, interesting.
Yep.
I never thought of that. So that I don't cry.
Exactly.
Okay.
And another tip I could also share with you.
Yeah.
Before slicing onions, you can also throw them in the fridge for about 10 minutes before you cut.
Okay.
It'll actually not make you cry at all.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can just throw them maybe in the freezer or in the refrigerator for a few minutes.
Okay.
And as soon as you start slicing, it should actually be very easy for you to slice all the way to the end without having any tears oozing from your face. So that's also another tip that I can share with you on the show today.
That's nice. I thought whenever they make you tear up is when they're really fresh.
No. Yeah. Actually, what happens is there is the enzymes in the onion.
Yeah.
And what happens is, especially for reasons that, of course, science can only explain, there is, of course, the juices that are contained in the onions that will, of course, create a nice, or rather they'll create a pungency, even on the aroma.
Yeah.
So this is actually the same enzyme that you taste, especially when you eat raw onions in a salad. You know, there's a sharpness that really tastes bad.
Yeah.
So that particular enzyme that's actually the taste of it.
Okay.
And it's the same thing that actually makes you tear when you're chopping. How is it now? Is it much easier?
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Perfect. All right. So we pretty much have finished cleaning out our fish. Very important to also check the inside. Make sure that it's also been gutted. So you should actually be making sure that you don't have any bits of flesh that are in there, or even a bit of veins that may actually contain the feces. And once that is done, I'm pretty much going to proceed to salt this. So Kevin, you can pretty much assist me on that.
How much?
So we're going to pretty much rub a bit of salt on the inside. And this is basically to make sure you get that beautiful full flavor.
All right.
And then I'm also going to rub some salt over the top, making sure to, of course, turn and salt on both sides.
All right.
And just before finishing that off, very simply, we're also going to portion that out. So I'm also going to slice that right through the third last end of the fish. And I'm also going to make about 2 more incisions towards the head. Now, also to find out, do you like your fish with the head or without the head?
With the head, with the head.
You like
I
it with
usually
the head?
just start
Perfect.
with the head, you know, because I like the bits at the top here. Really nice. And sometimes also they call it a peculum.
Yes.
Bit over there. It's really, I really like the salt bit about it. It's really nice. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So very important to also remember, always remember to remove that fin as well.
Yeah.
Remember, as I said, especially if you're going to be serving this to your kids at home, you
need
definitely want to make sure that they're going to enjoy the fish without any chances of them pricking their fingers with that.
You know, I grew up with like we eating the whole fish, and then you just eat the meat part, and then you remove the bones with the side of your tongue.
And it's actually a very, very common. It's actually a very common technique of having fish here in Kenya. I think I also used to enjoy doing that when I was much younger.
Yeah.
But I realized I became very lazy in eating my fish in that method, especially when I learned how to fillet my own fish. So I literally stopped doing it as soon as I learned how to.
Right.
All right. So our onions are chopped up. We are, of course, also going to allow for our fish to begin to cook.
Right.
So we're going to give our oil just a few minutes to continue to heat up.
Yeah.
I'm just going to also move the board with the fish to one end here, just to make some room to work with.
Okay.
Right, so our onions are nicely chopped up, so you can proceed to move those onto this.
All right.
Right, now as Kevin continues, we are of course going to proceed to prepare the rest of the ingredients. I will of course give you this chance as well to take a very, very short break, but when we do come back, I will of course have all the vegetables chopped up. We'll also have our oil nice and hot, and we'll just proceed to fry up the fish, make the vegetable medley, which will of course take us to the last and final part of plating. But please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, viewers. For those of you who've just tuned in, I and Kevin have been working on preparing some of the ingredients which are going to begin to saute in a little bit. But as I had mentioned before we went on the break, we were of course going to begin by grilling our fish or frying or shallow frying our fish. And I'm now just going to proceed to turn that over onto the other side. As you can be able to get the colors from the camera, nice beautiful brownness on the fish, which of course gives you the go-ahead to proceed to cook and turn on to the next side. But as that continues, I'm also going to begin to heat up the other pan where we're going to be sauteing our vegetables. So very, very simple technique of making a vegetable medley. About 2 to 3 varieties of onions, a few peppers. You can also incorporate some zucchini, any particular vegetable you like, just as long as you have about 3 to 4 different colors represented on your plate, you should be very okay. Now, Kevin, how are you doing on the other side with the garlic?
I'm good, man.
So far, so good?
It's coming out good, yeah.
Nice, nice.
Maybe just put the salt and then...
Just add a bit of salt and continue grinding. All right, now to the other pan, we'll begin by adding a bit of oil and allow the pan to come to the heat. Be sure to also give a nice generous drizzle of oil because you are going to saute your vegetables, and you of course don't want your pan to go a bit dry, especially when doing so.
Cool.
I'm also going to be grabbing a plate that will be presenting our dish on, and I'm also going to proceed to slice my lemon into half. This we're going to be squeezing right over our fish. So Kevin, perfect. That's good.
Nice.
Right, so we're going to proceed to begin the sauteing process very, very simply.
Right.
So we're going to be adding our garlic first.
Okay.
And now the reason why we add our garlic is basically to bring a nice aroma to the oil.
Okay.
So I'm just going to begin by removing most of the garlic from the pestle. And of course proceed to scoop your garlic from the mortar. And proceed to add onto your hot pan. Simple as that. I'm also going to be showing you a very, very simple technique of sauteing.
Okay.
And I don't know if you pretty much tried this at home by cooking without using a spoon or just tossing your vegetables in the pan.
Like this? Like
No. You haven't tried it yet?
No.
So we're going to do a little demo with you today.
Okay.
All right, so once your garlic just begins to turn golden brown in color, we're just going to add everything in together.
Okay.
So into that, for those of you who missed out, we've got 3 color capsicums. We also added some red onion and some spring onion. So it's a very, very simple technique. The idea is to basically jerk the pan backwards.
Okay.
So it's very,
That's
very
it.
simple, yeah.
Okay.
But you do, of course, have to give it a bit of a lift as you do so.
Ah.
So pretty much all you do is, you see, it's basically just jerking the pan back. And you should actually be able to try this out at home, give it a try.
I'll try at home.
But one particular technique I like to use, or what I used to use when I used to practice, I used to buy like peanuts.
Okay.
And I'd basically pour them on the pan, and see if I could get them to roll.
All right, okay.
Because what happens is items such as peanuts will be much harder to toss like this because they are a little round in shape.
Yes.
So they may, of course, go everywhere once you toss them up in the air.
Yeah.
But if you can be able to do it with
It's
just
good
some raw
practice.
peanuts or even some cashew nuts, just try and toss them on a pan. If you can get it right with nuts, you can toss anything else.
Anything else.
Exactly.
Cool. I'm going to try that.
Definitely give it a try.
Yeah.
Right, so Kevin, you're going to be adding the rest of our ingredients for us.
On top?
No, just the spices.
All right.
So we're going to start off with the one closest to you, which is our oregano. So you can just chuck that in there.
All of it?
All of it, yeah.
Okay.
And then the next one is some cumin powder.
All right.
Perfect. Simple as that. So just toss that nice and briefly. Then we'll begin to finish off with our coriander powder.
Yes.
So these are basically aromatics to give the vegetables a nice, beautiful flavor.
Yeah.
I'm just going to continue to toss those in the pan.
Yeah.
And once they're almost crunchy and almost fully cooked, we're not going to cook them completely to the end.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be incorporating a bit of some lemon juice.
Yeah, for that tingly.
For that tinginess, and just to be able to get it to blend very nicely with the fish.
Nice.
Right, so nice squeeze of half a lemon.
Okay.
Proceed to toss that once more. Right, and now we can go in with our chopped coriander leaves.
Right.
So you can add a small pinch in there.
Pinch of
Just
salt?
pinch, no, just the coriander.
All right.
Yeah, just about half of that.
Like this?
All
right.
Perfect. Now this also brings a nice, beautiful color.
Even the smell, man.
And the smell is also nice and sharp.
Yeah.
So now that beautiful smell that you're basically getting through, that's basically the addition of just the lemon juice that really just brings up the flavor.
All right.
And then you can, of course, also add just a little bit of oil.
Okay.
And remember, we're using olive oil for this recipe.
Okay.
It's a beautiful option. It's got no cholesterol to it, so you can actually eat as much olive oil as you like.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
You'll also be able to...
Is it the same as the vegetable oils?
No. Now, olive oil is a little different. It's extracted from the olive seed.
Okay.
So one particular difference to olive oil as opposed to the rest of the oils, it's actually got almost zero or no cholesterol to it, as opposed to vegetable oil, which has very low cholesterol. So with olive oil, you're always safe.
Okay.
It will of course cost a little higher in price, maybe even triple.
Yeah.
But you can
But
never
it's
go
worth it.
wrong.
Yeah.
But it's worth it if you're looking for some good cooking in your home kitchen.
Man. Of course. Healthy every day.
Healthy every day.
Yeah.
Right, now as I finish that off, our vegetables are now ready to go. So we're going to begin to plate that very briefly.
Right.
And I'm also going to check on the other side of our fish just to make sure it's also nicely, beautifully colored.
Right.
And that's perfectly good to go.
Good.
So I'm also going to turn that off completely, allow for the pan to continue to cool off.
Okay.
And while we do so, I'm just going to make some space on our countertop.
Right.
And we're just going to proceed to plate.
Yeah. You know, recently I was in Cape Verde.
Uh-huh.
There was like one of their delicacies. You know, Cape Verde is the island off of West Africa. It's one of their delicacies is a fish that looks like an eel.
So it's with a nice long teeth
yeah. And when you see it, it's like a snake. It's like a snake. But it's one of the best dishes there.
What do you remember the local name that they used on that?
I forgot the name. I had like a lot of dishes there that are similar to what we eat here. Like they have stuff that is similar to gideri. They have stuff,
but of course, with a nice a bit of difference.
With because they would have this. Sorry, they would have this whole meal where they have rice, beans, maize, and the same spot. And then they have fish, chicken,
in the same pot.
Same spot.
So it's pretty much more like what we chefs call a surf and turf, whereby you've got about 3 varieties of meat in the same dish.
Right, yeah.
How was it?
It was nice. I liked it.
I'm actually going to do a bit of research and maybe I can try that on the weekend.
Why not?
Yeah, and if you actually have the recipe, do share it.
Yeah, of course I will.
Thank you, man. Yeah. All right, now, Kevin, we've pretty much finished off cooking all our ingredients for today.
Okay.
So I'm, of course, going to take you through the very simple process of plating. And I do hope once you try this at home, you'll just send me a screenshot and show me what you came up with.
Okay, I will.
Because this is a bit of homework for you for the weekend, yeah?
Of course.
All right.
I will try it out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now, very, very simple technique of plating that I'm going to be using. I pretty much grew up enjoying plating, especially when looking for symmetry. You as an artist, you of course know how that brings about balance on a plate.
Yes, all the colors come into.
And the colors come through real nice.
Yes.
Right, so I'm going to begin very, very simply by lifting our tomato slices. So as we did, we just slice them nice and thin.
Yeah.
So this I'm just going to spread out almost to one end of the plate like that.
Yeah.
And as I said, a very, very good alternative to having ugali or rice as an accompaniment. You can, of course, have an array of cooked and raw vegetables.
Okay.
It always goes very nice and easy with some fish.
Nice.
All right. Next up, I'm also going to be laying over some lemon slices on the side here. And this is basically where I'm going to be moving my fish to.
Wow.
Right, so simple as that.
Looks yummy.
I believe you'll enjoy this dish.
Of course.
Right, so very simply begin by lifting that off the pan. Give it a bit of time to just drain the excess oil.
Yeah.
And once that's done, proceed to just move that straight onto your plate.
Oh,
Simple as that.
nice.
All right, now we're going to proceed to lay on top of the fish some of our remaining slices of lemon.
Nice.
And as I said, this of course brings around a beautiful balance of color to your plate.
Right.
Also manages to give that beautiful citrusness to the fish. So what happens is as the fish continues to cool down, the juices are going to ooze very gently into the fish.
Beautiful.
So for every piece of fish that you pull out, it's actually going to be almost lemon infused in a way.
Nice. Yeah? Lemonade fish.
Lemonade fish. Right, now once that's done, we're just going to proceed to move our vegetable medley to the plate.
Right.
And I'm also going to be plating that right in the center. Of course, always scooping in just enough for a portion.
Wow.
Simple as that. What do you think so far?
It's beautiful.
Nice and easy, yeah?
It's beautiful.
Right, and once that is done, very simply, a bit of some fresh coriander over the top.
Wow.
And that is as simple as my fish is. What do you think?
That's a nice dish, man.
What do you think from an artist's perspective?
I think all the colors are represented.
All the colors are in there.
Yes.
We've pretty much got the color scheme right.
The color scheme is okay. You have the red, blues, and the yellows. You know? So
perfect.
The greens inside there, and the reds and the oranges.
Right.
So like it's a very colorful dish onto that white plate. I like the plating.
Nice.
Really nice.
Now, of course, you will grace us with your taste buds.
Wow.
So I'm actually just going to move that up here. And I'm actually going to ask you to just get a piece of that fish from the sides.
Okay. Just grab this bit.
Nice and soft. It actually tears up very, very gently.
Yeah.
So give that a bit of taste. Check as well with the vegetables. Check for seasoning. Tell us how we did on the show today.
All right. Oh, it's lovely.
Is the lemon coming through?
Yes.
How's about the vegetables? Also give that a taste. Make sure that we've got all that beautiful umami balance. Vegetables nice and crunchy, not overcooked.
Really nice, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then
it's
I
a
believe
very beautiful dish. And then probably sometimes I like to balance with them.
With a bit of some tomato.
Yeah.
So actually also bite into a slice of that.
Yeah.
And now with the tomatoes, remember we salted them very gently just to bring the sweetness out.
Yeah. It brings a nice balance to the whole dish.
And it's also a beautiful mouthfeel, I believe. Yeah?
Nice, yeah. It's a beautiful dish.
Right, so ladies and gentlemen, I believe my challenge has been, of course, I believe we have actually managed to pull off this very, very simple challenge. I believe I've pretty much managed to convince Kevin that you can actually go simple. You can, of course, also go very, very vibrant with colors and, of course, with very, very special or paying special attention to the cost effect.
Yeah.
I believe this is also a meal that is also cost-friendly. Yeah?
Cost-friendly, yes.
Should actually be very easy to come up with this dish without any issues, yes?
Yes.
Perfect.
I'll make a picture.
Actually, take a picture and send me one once you try it from home.
Yes, I will.
Right, so ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Very, very simple tilapia, fried of course, with a vegetable medley, with a side of some fresh tomatoes. We've of course come to the last and final part of the show where I will bid you farewell. But I will also remind you, if you do have any questions, queries, or particular suggestions that you would like to air to us to the show, you can be able to do that through our Facebook page. That's BrandPlus TV Kenya. And if you missed out on this and many other beautiful recipes that we continue to air on the show, you can be able to recap through our YouTube channel. That's BrandPlus TV Kenya as well. But from my end and Kevin's, I believe we are going to call it a day. I'm pretty much going to allow Kevin to run off with a plate of food in front of us. But do remember to tune in once more. We'll continue to bring some very, very beautiful and simple recipes for you all to try at home. Sure. Thank you for tuning in today. God bless you all and see you soon.
Peace.